Yeah, I'm watching the rise, and I wouldn't say I'm shocked cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride, this one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife, could've left 1,000 times just about my side. This one's for the grind, I knew it.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Randy Kaye and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have the head coach of Fresno State softball, Stacy May-Johnson. The three-time all Big Ten selection, was a standout infielder for the Iowa Hawkeyes. She played professionally for the Chicago Bandits for 5 seasons in the National Pro Fast Pitch League. She was the 2006 NPF Rookie of the Year and one of only 6 players to have her number retired with the Bandits. She was also a 2-time gold medal winner with the USA softball national team, and in 2011 named USA Softball Female Athlete of the Year. Stacy, it's always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Randy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. How are things? How's life for the off season for you?
It's good. It's busy. When I first started coaching, you used to get some downtime after the season ended, and now that's been consumed by the portal. So I don't know that I love that, but I do like recruiting. So that's what we go into. That's the mode we go into right after season, and we're having some fun.
What did that used to look like? Like when you talk about downtime, what would that consist of for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all was, and I don't know that this is all that different, but I would just watch a bunch of softball, and try to go see my family or go on vacation, just take some time away from the office. But now, and I might still get away a little bit, but I'm on the phone. Calling some transfer from some school in the evening, and so there's not really a true off day, even if I am able to give it away. But that's what it is. This is what I signed up for. So make no mistake, I'm not complaining about it. I love this job. And so, you take every challenge for what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. And I talk about that all the time with being a travel ball coach and being involved in travel ball. Or even, as a parent of a player, it's a lifestyle that we all adopt. And for some of us, it just never goes away. So, congrats to you for hanging in there and just continuing to do what you love. When you talk about going home, where's home?
Yeah, so I grew up in Reno. And then also I'm married, I have 3 kids. So my in-laws live in Minnesota. And so, home is where my family is, but home is also where my in-laws are, my sisters-in-law and all of them. And so the Midwest, but also the West Coast. So, hey, anywhere that somebody will have us.
Right. Are you guys a pretty close family? Do you guys do, big holidays together? Is it something you look forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in one of those families where I'm really the only one that ever moved away. And my family, you're always going to a graduation or a birthday party. Christmas is not a small event. It's a lot of people. We're always getting together. There's always something going on. It seems like every single weekend.
Yeah, my wife's family is that way. They're very close. They almost seem like they make things up to get together, which is funny because I don't think we have to, but they make some sort of reason or some sort of event to get everybody together on a weekend or up north to which is just about an hour north of Phoenix and Prescott. So and so now you're talking transfer portal. Kids that decommit late, transfer portal kind of dominoes down to commits. And then, so how does that happen now? What does that look like for you? Where does Fresno State sit in that mix when it comes to the transfer portal?
Well, we've done well in the portal. I don't think that's any secret. We've done very well in the portal.
Yeah.
When we started, we took over the program 3 years ago. I think that was an uncertainty. I think we thought, okay, well, we'll recruit some of these athletes and see if they're good fits. But we certainly weren't sure of, we're going to really find a lot of impact players, even impact pitchers, which is not easy to do out of the portal. But now here we are 3 years later, and we've done that. We've done exactly that. And so now we have a better grasp of what we can anticipate to get from the portal. I think there's certain pieces that we've been successful with, and I think there's other pieces that we haven't been as successful with, whether it be speed or again, pitching's hard to get. And so I think we now have been able to evaluate what's been our success rate, what are things that we're going to attack out of high school, and what are things that we know that if we don't get exactly what we want out of high school, we'll wait and see what comes up. And so we have a better approach now. We have a better plan. And that just takes time. I mean, it just takes time. I mean, nobody, to be honest with you, a lot of times you step into the recruiting scene and you say, hey, well, I'm going to, recruit this player. And my intent is that, so-and-so is going to be the starting whatever, if not her freshman year, her sophomore year. That's the intent when you step into it. And then you throw in the transfer portal and it changes everything, And
Yeah.
so then, you kind of look back on it and you think, well, I don't want to plan too deeply here. Clearly, we want to be covered on the mound behind the plate in the middle infield. There's some pieces we want to be covered on, but anymore, I don't know that it's really all that beneficial to do that much planning, maybe a little bit, but really just go get the best available athletes you can find that can hit the ball and always protect yourself on pitching and catching.
Yeah, so that's best available athlete, whether it's transfer or incoming freshman. How has you mentioned pitchers? How has I read an article a few weeks back, and I think it was already a year old, that the days of the full game ace are they're getting to be very few and far between. What are your thoughts on that? Is that mindset, is that true? And do you see that as being true? Number one, and number two, how does that affect the rest of the teams that now some of those bigger programs are going to go get 4 and 5, and that 4 and 5 might have been somebody's one. Like, how is that affecting softball?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I've actually agreed with that wholeheartedly for quite some time. When you go back to my coaching stints, back Utah Valley, and then before that, Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky was really the first program where we implemented that philosophy. And I mean, that's, we're getting close to 7, 8, 9 years ago now, where we were truly using a staff and we were effective doing it, even though, when you go back to some of the best pitchers we had back then, Molly Pollock was maybe the best in the Ohio Valley Conference at that time. And she rarely threw 7 because of the way we were managing the staff. And we would always marvel at looking at the stat sheet. We always thought, man, we look better on paper than what we feel like we are in person. And we felt like it was effective pitching changes. So we've been doing that for years. I don't know that a lot of have coaches. I think it took a lot of coaches to arrive at that point some time, but I think they're arriving there now. I want to say we were a bit ahead of the curve on that for sure. We're just better at it now. And so certainly that is absolutely the direction of the game. And I think it's backed in a lot of facets. It's backed in experience, but it's also backed statistically. I do think it's still a hard decision. The pitching change is still the hardest decision in the game to make, when to make it. But yes, that's what's happening. And then I think the fallout of that, like you mentioned, is that everybody is stockpiling pitching. Exactly right, as they should be. And so what we're finding is there's just simply not a surplus of pitching. There's a deficit. I'm not going to mention any specifics, but there were athletes that we looked at out of the transfer portal, and we thought, okay, this is a 75 to 100 inning getter here in the Mountain West. And those pitchers decided to go to ACC, SEC schools, whatever, and they threw 12 innings.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense to me. I understand the programs and the coaches and why they're doing it and the decision, but I think the athletes need to get smarter. Don't turn down 75 to 100 innings for 12. Don't do it. That's a bad decision, and I know everybody wants to bet on themselves, but I think that the pitchers need to be smart. You don't want to be, in my opinion, you don't want to be the number 6 or 7 somewhere. You want to be the 2 somewhere else. That's the right decision.
Right. And when you talk about the decision to pull pitchers, I agree with you. That's always a tough one. Like you got a kid that's, 1.5 times through the lineup already, and you're, let's say you're a 1-1 or a 0-0 game, and you're starting to see people make changes a little earlier than you would think. Is there anything that you directly tie into making that decision or not making that decision? Because I know obviously there's some feel to it, but do you have any as an experienced ahead of the curve staff doing that? Do you have any kind of insight on that
I
you
think
would
the
like to
thing,
share?
yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's been, probably most helpful for us. I mean, the first of all is just pay attention. If the batter, first trip through the lineup, second pitch of the at bat squared something up. I don't care if it's caught or not. If they squared it up, they're on her. They saw her the first time. They're probably going to square her up again. And so, if that same batter comes up in a bases loaded situation, I mean, that's a leverage point in the game. Let's get something different. Let's change this look. So certainly paying attention, and just really like the quality of the swings that they're putting on the pitchers the first time through the lineup, the quality of the takes. Is my pitcher throwing a really good competitive pitch that most batters will swing at and miss or foul off the first time through the lineup, and this batter is taking it for a ball? That's a great take, and those are some things that when you watch a pitcher long enough over the course of the season, you start to see those trends of, oh, that was a really good take, or oh boy, she was right on time for that. And she's fouling off the changeup. We got nothing left to go to. So I think just identifying those particular batters, and then also just properly evaluating matchups. We're lucky enough to have both lefties and righties in our staff, and good ones. Not just average ones, but good ones. And so, that's certainly a factor too, is being able to look at the matchup and say, hey, I just like this matchup better. We're going to make a change.
Yeah, and you guys have the luxury of so much more data than obviously we do at the travel ball level. We're all trying. I'm sure there's some programs, at the top of the food chain that are, dabbling in that area. I spent a little bit of time a few weeks back with Dave King from Triple Crown, and saw his facility, and we sat and chatted about how he's building the team that he's going to take to compete in Canada. And it just blew my mind, the stuff he was saying and talking about matchups, and and how he's going to stack a staff to compete against those swings, and what would give him the best chance to win. And of course, that sounds super easy. Us as coaches look at it and we go, "Oh yeah, we like this kid," but just to hear him talk about it was really interesting. How much do you put into removing a player before they fail, like let's say early in a season or in the travel ball level? And I'll give you a quick example. So I had a player last weekend at Zoom that we brought up to get some innings, and she goes in. The first two batters, I'm not joking, they absolutely squared the ball up. Like, they were caught. I think it might even been the first three outs were in deep right center field to right-handed batters. And those pitches were good competitive pitches. And then the kid gets through the inning with no runs, goes out the next inning, has a ball hit hard, and then we get a couple good pitches and we make good plays, and then I took her out. I was like, cool, let's finish here. Do you have any thought on ending, especially at our level, ending on a positive note versus crap, I got to go get her and get somebody else?
Well, I like that. I mean, I like what you did there. The writing was on the wall. Let's make the change. Now, I guess my only question is, was she able to take the information and see that, hey, we've got some improving to do? Because I guess my question for you is, like, do you sometimes need to let them get hit a little bit at the travel ball level to help them to see, no, we're not quite there. But as long as she walks away with that information of like, ooh, I got out of that, so I'm feeling decent, but I've got a couple things to work on. I think that's a great call as a coach.
Absolutely. No, we talk about it all the time, the false positives, and that can go offensively or defensively. And I know for a fact that kid got it. And I know maybe even more importantly, and you may disagree with this, but the text message from mom afterwards was like, whew, like she barely got out of that one, and we got work to do. So because as well as I do at our level, it's so much more helpful when you have a support system at home that's backing you and helping us hold them accountable.
Yeah,
So
totally. That's awesome. I mean, that's really great. I don't know if you've watched the Michael Jordan documentary. If you haven't, it's really good. One of the episodes, they tell the story. The mother tells the story, or somebody tells the story of the mother, where it's everybody's heard it. Michael Jordan got cut. He didn't make varsity or whatever his sophomore, freshman year, whatever. And he goes home and tells his mom, "Hey, mom, I got cut. I didn't make the team." And she says, "Well, you better work harder then." And it's like, here's the thing. I really, truly believe that Michael Jordan was such a phenomenal athlete that he would have been a great basketball player, even without that comment from his mother. But I would argue, I believe that I do not think he would have been the greatest basketball player. Again, arguably, LeBron's obviously awesome, but I don't believe he would have been the greatest basketball player of all time or of his time without that kind of mentality. I mean, he was wired different. Like when you watch the show, you're like, no, this dude was wired different. Like everyone's out partying and doing all this stupid stuff, and he's back in his hotel room focused on the game the next day. The dude was wired different, and you can't help but wonder if you don't have a mom like that, that's going to just tell you what you need to hear and push you to work harder, that you don't have a very different trajectory. So I always like that story. Parents need to understand that is obviously you want to love your kids, support your kids. You're a parent first to your kids, but then also the silver spoon is not the way to go. Feeding their ego is not going to help them. So they've got to know the truth, and they've got to know that their parents have their backs. Yes, we'll always love them, but we'll always push them too.
yeah, and I look at that too, like the simplest things, like a practice or a tournament on a weekend, or things that they should be prioritizing our team and the commitment they made to our team or a team. And then that question should never even be to me. That should be nipped in the bud at home. Like I'll use an example. Like I've had some situations over the years where I'll be on the phone and my daughter will happen to be here, and I'll be mad, or I'll say whatever, and she says, "Well, what happened?" And I tell her, well, this kid is going to do this, or this kid wants to skip this for this homecoming, whatever it may be. And she just looks at me like, how do kids even ask that? Like, why are they asking you? Like, you would have never even they would have never even gotten to the coach, because if I even would have wanted to, you would have said no. So, I mean, they already kind of knew that, like, that's the focus, that is the mentality, and and at the end of the day, it's their goal. So only thing I'm trying to do is hold you accountable to reaching the goal that you set, and helping you reach the dream that you set for yourself of playing at the next level. So we need more parents like that for sure. I mean, we're fortunate to have a bunch of those, but sometimes it'd be nice to have it completely. So, how about your situation growing up? How were you raised similarly, or were you just, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, we can jump into this a little bit. Do you remember the first time you and I talked?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, we were watching a game. I think I was experiencing some recruiting fatigue, and I think we talked, and I think I found you to be authentic, which I don't know that I'd had all day that day. So I do remember that.
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were watching Megan Golden, and
That's right.
I remember that too, because you had said that to me. You had said to me, you just showed me a lot of respect, which I look at you guys as college coaches. You guys are all kind of on a pedestal, right? We all, as club coaches, look at like that, and of course the relationships are there, and so I still feel that way, but I feel it reciprocated a little bit more. But like back then when you and I talked, it blew me away that you were so appreciative of what me taking the time to talk to you, and I can't remember exactly how you said it, but talking to me from Eastern Michigan and spending so much time talking to me, And then I come to find out later, like all of your accolades and who you were as a player. So like that humbleness, I should have known, because people who do things at a high level and understand what it takes to get there and how hard it is to maintain that are usually pretty humble people. So it should have stood out. But my question to you is, were you raised that way, or were you just self-motivated? Tell me how you got to be to that level and be that kind of player.
Yeah, it was self-motivated. I'm the only athlete in my family. My brother played some youth sports. He was done with everything by the time he was 12. I don't know if you saw this Zoom call came up on my, I don't know if that interrupted you, but I just
No,
muted
we're
it.
good.
Anyways, no, I don't have any cousins or anybody that really competed at anything above a recreational level. I'm really, truly an anomaly in my family. And so I don't know that, that environment wasn't there for my parents. I mean, that my dad loved sports. My mom was super supportive, but no, I just was internally driven. There was no external factor. It was just, I love the game. I love to play. I love to compete in any sport and every sport growing up. I was a gym rat, playing sports year round. I played tennis in the summer. I grew up playing tennis down at the public courts. Was actually, by the way, that was really, really good for my defensive footwork. I learned how to play.
I was just thinking of all
Yeah,
the moves that you have to make.
yeah. I
Yeah.
learned how to play defense on a tennis court. To be honest with you, at least with my feet.
Moving
Um,
your feet. Yep.
Moving your feet, and a lot of short, choppy steps, and a split step on a return of serve is very much akin to like a pre-pitch hop, or split step as the pitch is going in. So anyways, all that translated. But yeah, I just love to play. I love to compete. And so no, nobody was pushing me. It was really, truly just from me. And so again, I guess a unique situation, but everybody has their own story. And
Yeah.
my family didn't have any experience with athletes, so they just were kind of along for the ride.
But your dad loved sport. You said, what sports did he enjoy watching?
Everything, like there was always baseball on the TV, there was football on the TV. Like we just had sports on at the house. And when I was really little, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Turn this off. But then it didn't take that long before I just grew to love it, and I still do. I mean, if I have a day off, on the weekends in the fall, I mean, I'm watching football. And my kids, I drive them nuts. They're like, guess what, guys? It's a Sunday in the fall. You know what we're doing? They're like watching football. So,
Who's your
so
football team?
uh, well, I just love the NFL period.
Okay.
Like across the board, I'll pretty much watch anybody. I mean, I did grow up a Niners fan, and I am kind of in Niners territory, so I suppose I'll pull for them a little bit harder. But I just like watching period, and then I'm a Hawkeye, so I got to root for
Right.
Iowa.
The Niners were pretty fun to watch this past year.
Yeah, really
That
fun.
was a really interesting story. I really like their coach, Shanahan. I like how he carries himself. I like he looks the part. He looks like the next dude. Like he's gonna get there. So no experience with sports from your family in terms of an older brother or a cousin, like you said, or older whomever. Um, but supportive, right? I think you said that. Just supported you in what you wanted to do. Um, gave you the opportunities. I assume, obviously, you made it to where you needed to go for practices and games and had the equipment. So, I mean, that's another way of driving. Did you look up to anybody though? Like, was there anybody that you looked up to in any sport?
Well, a lot of them really, just so many sports that I liked. But I had a Dot Richardson poster on my wall. So
Okay.
yeah, like that '96 Olympic crew, Dot and Lisa. I mean, just going back there, those were obviously kind of the players that I looked up to when I was a kid. But then I watched a ton. I watched a ton of sports, and so I can go down. There was a point guard, and I was a point guard in high school, but so I'm only 5'5", so I played some basketball in high school. I played on a good high school team, and there was a point guard by the name of Mateen Cleaves. He played at
Yeah.
Michigan State, and I believe they won a national championship. And so he was a player I liked watching because he was pretty short, pretty good distributor of the ball, and a really good leader. There was a guy named Vlad Guerrero. His son plays in Major League Baseball now. The younger son, I think he's also Vlad Guerrero. But I remember watching Vlad Guerrero Sr. play, and he would just hit the most ridiculous pitches. The pitch would be rolling on the ground, and the guy would just smack it over the fence.
He'd lift it. Yep.
I mean, you never knew what he was going to swing at. He was so wild, but so athletic. I mean, I can go down the list. There was athletes in a lot of sports that I really just liked watching.
That's awesome. What about locally growing up playing sports? Did you obviously you played on a travel team, or were you one of those kids that had to travel a little bit somewhere else to find what you were looking for?
Well, we didn't have a clue. My family didn't have a clue. So, there were some local travel teams, and I was doing well, and so I played on them. Whatever 10U, and I would typically play up an age group, and that was really good for me. I kind of when I played my age group, I was pretty advanced, and so it where I got really better was playing up an age group, and so I did that locally for a while, and then. There was a NorCal travel ball guy that came to town, and I really don't even know how I got set up, but there were 2 or 3 of us that went out, and we hit some balls around and threw some balls, and he said, "Hey, you should come play for my team." It was a travel team by the name of R&R Gold out of Stockton. I believe they still exist today, but I don't know that they play as competitively as we did back then. But I had no idea. I mean, I didn't know what I was signing up for. So, okay, well, I guess, yeah, I'll just go play on this team out of Northern California. It seemed like an okay fit. And so we would drive to Stockton on Sundays, and, we'd get up and leave 5, 6 in the morning, and we'd practice from like 9 until 3, 4, or 5 in the afternoon, and then drive home. That's what we did every Sunday. And then obviously fall ball and summer ball. And that's where we started. That was my first exposure to college coaches. And I was I want to say I was a sophomore in high school. And back then that was an 18 gold team. And back then an 18 gold team, that meant something. That meant like an 18 gold team that could qualify for ASA nationals was good.
Right.
And so
right.
I was playing on this 18 gold team as a sophomore, and I was kind of getting beat up a little bit, but then also like having flashes of success too. And there were coaches at those games. There was a lot of coaches watching that team. And so, this is pretty cool. Like, I think I want to play in at the next level. And so it was pretty cool to get that exposure, but still just didn't have much of a clue. I really didn't know. I mean, I knew that I was like on the teams that I had played on, I was typically one of the better players. I knew that. But beyond that, I had no clue. I had no clue. I'm like, I don't know where I stack up in this thing. I don't know. Just know I like hitting the ball. Let's go play some softball. I know that when I have a prom or whatever, like the question didn't even go to my parents because it's not even a question for me. No, I don't want to go to the prom. I want to go play softball. Let's go play softball. So it was really, and that's where kind of like that passion and that drive came in. We weren't even getting to that question with the parents, let alone the coach, because I don't want to do that. I want to play softball. So yeah, I played for that team for 3 years and got some really good exposure and ended up playing at a pretty high level. I was very happy with the experience. I look back on it in hindsight now, and should I have moved to a bigger org and whatever? I don't know. I thought it suited me just fine. And not only do you have to play in a program that's competitive enough, but you also have to play in a program that's a good fit for you. That's I think that's one of the downfalls is sometimes athletes get into programs that are just a bad fit for them, whether it be stylistically or personality wise. But that was a grinders program. Like you just got in there, you worked, you weren't entitled. You just went out there and loved the game and played. And so then it was a great spot for me.
R&R Gold. I know that. And I was going to look in my phone. Who was the coach of that team?
His name was Bob Paula.
I know somebody that coached on that team, or at least I've met somebody that coached there. I remember that name. That's come up before to me in the past. Well, that's great. When you talk about fit for players nowadays, I mean, obviously there's so many options. There's so many, this team's going to do this and that for you. What is your overall thought on travel ball right now when it comes to just the professionalism of it? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Are there, where do you see weak as travel ball guys? Where can I help improve? How can we be better and better serve the players that are going to go to the next level?
I think it's improved. I guess one of the questions I have, and Brandy, I don't know, I know this has never been a thing for you because of the conversation, our very first conversation, but is it a better experience for me because I'm at a Mountain West school now? Yeah. That like, well, if you don't know my background and you just see me wearing my Eastern Kentucky hat or my Utah Valley hat, like, is there a lower level of respect for that? I know that it's been a good experience for me, but I think that, people like Fresno State, they know we have a stadium, right? They know that we're good. They know that we compete in the Mountain West. And so I think it's been really helpful. The coaches are really communicative, and I do my best to be communicative back, answer calls and text messages and talk to them on the phone and all that stuff. I think all that stuff has been really, really helpful because, at the end of the day, it's about relationships. But I think that's just my one question. And there's my skepticism speaking is, are you going to treat me differently based upon where I coach? That's my question.
Right. That's I think something that everyone needs to understand. And it's something that from within my organization, I talk about those things with our coaches. I tell them, you never know where that coach is going to be. So we should never look at a school where sometimes you may not know, or you may not even ever have heard of the school, but like that might be the next coach somewhere else that you have a kid that wants to go to school there. So I tell them all the time, like, my coaches are all great people, and I don't see anybody big time in anybody, but that's absolutely right. Again, it's about relationships, and I don't think you and I would be having this call if we started off on that foot, back in 2017 or 18, whenever it was.
Totally.
So, and that's just not my personality to begin with, but because I appreciate anytime I get to talk to coaches and anytime a coach shows up to watch our kids play, because, we can't leave any stone unturned. We can't assume that every one of our kids is going to go wherever they want to go. We got to find a fit, and sometimes they don't know it's a fit until we present them with that opportunity, and it's never going to happen if we're big time in people or, looking past or looking at logos. So, that's interesting. I'll be keeping an eye out for that, and I'll continue to push that message. Let's talk a little bit about your college and pro career. I'm super interested in those transitions from high school to college, from college to pro. Is it what you thought? And, what did you learn about yourself along the way?
Yeah, good questions. I think I'll talk a little bit about my transition from college to pro because I think that's probably a little bit more interesting story. I was drafted to the Chicago Bandits, and when I got there, my rookie year, the Bandits were stacked. Stacked. We didn't lose. We didn't lose much at all, and I think it was. Yeah, in college, everybody's good to a point, but I got there and it's like, whoa, everybody's really good, really good. So you're walking in as a rookie, and I'm not huge in stature. So I'm kind of like, okay, where am I going to fit in here? But I guess I've never really lacked for confidence. If anything, I tend to err on a little bit on the overconfident side. And not necessarily huge ego, but if you're like, can you do that? Yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah, no problem.
I got this.
Yeah, exactly. So I roll in there and, for me, my head's like, well, where am I going to play? I play shortstop, I play third base, and whatever you guys want. Those are the spots where I'm good. So tell me what you want. And I roll in there and I'm not starting. Okay, this is different experience. But I do some things well with the bat. So I was coming off the bench in pinch hitting. And at that level, who are you going to pinch hit for? Are you going to pinch hit for that All-American? Are you going to pinch hit for that All-American? No, we had one slapper in the lineup. So I pinch hit in some RBI situations probably every other game. But I did well. I did well in those situations. And, part of the thing was we weren't losing. Why would the coaches want to make any changes? We're not losing. We're winning. We win every game, mostly. Right. And so but I'm coming in doing well in my pinch hits. And I'm struggling. I'm struggling on the bench. Like it's hard. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not mad at the coaches. I'm not mad at my teammates. I'm just struggling, And so I think it was one of the USA teams came to town, and obviously very good, very talented, and we're not used to losing. And they come in and we played, I want to say the first 2 games of the series we lost. And so it's one of those times where it's like, all right, coach is kind of looking around thinking, okay, like, hey, maybe now is we're going to try to shake things up a little bit, figure out how we can beat this team. And so they inserted me for a start at third base. And I believe it was game 3 of that series. And that game I went 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. And I never came out of the lineup again the rest of my career, except for like a few games where I was injured. But that was my story in Chicago. And then you fast forward and it's like, I had a great career, and in fact so good that they retired my number.
Yeah.
And so, you look at that, and I always think it's interesting because the margins are so thin of like, I never would have seen the field to like my freaking jersey's retired, like it's so thin,
Right.
it's so thin. And I wasn't a name, like I was a really good player coming out of the Big Ten, but I wasn't a name. I wasn't, that player that knocked in the winning run at the national championship game. And so I didn't have that going for me. We're just working from the bottom, but I guess that's always who I was. And so in that sense, I own it. So I think, and I do share that story with a lot of my athletes. I'll usually share it once or twice a year. And I think that there's a few takeaways. The first is I was mentally prepared. I was mentally, in my mind and in my heart, I was ready. I was not afraid of the opportunity. When the opportunity came, I went in there. I took good swings at good pitches. Now, I could have gone 0 for 3 and come right back out of the lineup and never had the career I did and maybe been a 2-year pro and then done. That's not the way it went. But I was prepared for the moment. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that we didn't really have a clue. We really don't have a clue. Like stepping into it, was my game ready? Was I physically prepared? I was, it turns out, but I didn't know that. I just showed up ready in my mind and ready in my heart. And it turns out my physical preparation was there. I was good enough at that time. And that physical preparation intersected with opportunity, and the rest was history. And so I think that there's a lot to be taken from that mindset wise, that we always have to stay ready. You don't know when your number is going to be called upon. It doesn't always work out the way you want it to. But that doesn't change the fact that you have to be physically, mentally prepared every single day for every single opportunity. I mean, that's all there is to it. And it's the same thing. You go out there in the game, and I mean, we are working so hard to get our hitters out of this, results oriented mindset of like, oh, I went 4 for 4, I did great. Oh, I went 0 for 4, I suck. No, stop it. Like, listen. All you can do is go out there and swing hard, aggressively at good pitches. Okay. And we don't worry about the 0 for 4 or the 4 for 4 because we believe that process will produce results over the course of time. If I go out there, I swing aggressively at the right pitches. I put the right swing on the right pitch, and I do that consistently over the course of time, the numbers will take care of themselves. So stop worrying about 0 for 4. Stop worrying about 2 for 4. Just do your job every single day. Just do your job to the best of your ability, and that's take the right swings at right pitches.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's how you handled that small bit of uncomfortable adversity early. And I liked what you said there. You said you stay ready, like not don't be ready, stay ready. Like you're ready, stay ready. And I was watching this piece the other day that came across Instagram, and it was Tony Gwynn talking about. He was talking to a group, and you couldn't see the group; you just saw him talking. And he says, "Hey, how many of you are good hitters?" And he's like, looking. You can tell he was like, not really very many people raising your hand. He said, "Why are you're not all good hitters?" And then then they raise their hand. He says, "Well," he goes, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of you are afraid to raise your hands, and I'm going to tell you right now, that means you're not a good hitter. Because the only thing you need to do when you get into this box is believe. He talked about, having the mindset to do it, and then, obviously his big thing is balance. Just be balanced, be in a good balanced position. But it's hard. It's hard with so many other things going on, and again, so many other opportunities. And you can say transfer portal, or I like to call it even the travel ball portal, which we have, which is, hey, I didn't play the second game of the bracket, so we're out of here. I think that for us doesn't happen as often, but obviously it's out there, and we just got to continue to try to educate players and educate families and let them know. And I think things like this help. Talking to coaches, talking to people who are influential, talking to those who have done it at a high level. Because what happens to you if you have a bad attitude and you're pissed at the coach and you're a bad teammate? You're probably not there, like you said. It doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So
not hurting. I mean, you're not hurting the coach. I mean, you're hurting yourself. Hurting
right.
yourself. That's not going to help you.
What about coaching? Tell me what you love about it. Tell me what you played at a high level. You had success. Actually, before we jump into that, I wanted to ask you, where do you think what was your best attribute as a player? Like, I know you hit. I know you played a good shortstop. Like, if you could, like, one thing that you're so proud of that you did well, or that you did with the most passion or with the most intent.
Well, I'll give you two. I can give you my physical thing, and then I can give you like kind of the who I am piece. Physically, I could find a barrel probably better than anybody in the game. I even when we were facing like the best in the game, Kat and Monica and those guys, I still wasn't swinging and missing. And so there's still a lot of value in a player that can find a barrel, that could just catch a barrel and do it consistently. There's some production to be had in that, especially if they're skilled defensively. And, at that time, and as you go up in level, I mean, the lefty hitters, they seem to project through the game, and so do the lefty pitchers. And so when you talk about a right-handed contact hitter, when the two best pitchers in the league are named Kat Osterman and Monica Abbott, I mean, there was always value in that. Oh, you're going to not strike out? Great. Let's put you in there,
Right, right.
Things I didn't know, I didn't understand at the time. I just knew that my bat hit their ball. And in college,
what would you attribute that to? Like, why do you seem to be good? Why were you good at that? Do you know?
That's a great question. I do think I have like a really, really fundamentally technically correct swing. I have a very, very textbook swing. I'm on plane for a really, really long time. And so what I lack for in physicality, I definitely made up for in mechanics. And then I think, not anymore because I'm washed up, but like fast hands. Fast hands always play. They always play. And so I was probably projected out of high school with gap power, and that's probably what I was. But I did come into my groove with a little bit more power to put it out in my mid-20s. So power came with time. But catch a barrel, that's happening, right? Runner at third, less than two, like it's done. It's done. The run's going to score. And there will always be value in a player like that, especially if they can defend. So that's probably the physical attribute that really propelled me through. It's skilled with the hands in the infield, but like the arm's a little suspect if we're being honest.
How suspect? What is it from across the diamond?
Well, my mechanics deteriorated with time, and so I don't know that I had a number on it coming out of high school. If I had to guess, I was probably less than 65, above 60, especially like at shortstop. That's going to be a bit suspect. But then I think that number dropped because my mechanics got worse, and I had a lot more pain with my shoulder over time. Okay. Yeah, it's actually that's been something that's really impacted my coaching career. I've really invested in throwing mechanics, and I tell my team that I'm like, this is my story. I don't want your throwing mechanics to deteriorate with time, because as I got better and quicker, there's a lot of value for an infielder to be able to get the ball quickly out of the glove and get it over to first base. And that transition time, my transition times got really, really good, really good. But with that, my mechanics deteriorated. I wasn't doing enough long toss. The throw from the 5-6 hole over time just became, I'll get it there, but it's not what you want. It's not a fired strike across the diamond. And so that was why a big part of the reason why that fit at third base was better for me as a professional. So my arm wasn't as exposed, but yeah,
gotcha.
But again, I made up for it. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this, I played a summer of shortstop for Team USA. So, and it was because of an injury. I wasn't their first choice. I was their first choice for third base, but you can make it work. We all see it. We all go out there and watch shortstops that don't have that textbook arm, and they just get the job done. So it can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to finish with, I mean, I think that's the physical piece. But I think the mental piece was really, I don't think that I'm not, again, I'm not super fast. I don't hit bombs. Um, so how does somebody like that propel to the level that I did? I was just doggedly determined. Um, I have this personality where I will just work at something, just I mean, it's not because it's like I have to do it. It's like it's fun. I'm having fun, right? So I will just go at something over and over and over and over and over and over until I have it absolutely perfect. Like I want to find the biggest jigsaw puzzle in the history of mankind and do it. Why? I don't know. It sounds fun. You remember like Tetris on the Nintendo, like the old school Nintendo? I
Yeah.
might be like the highest scorer of all time on Tetris. I told my husband when I met him, he's like, "What'd you score on Tetris?" And I told him like what I scored. And he's like, "You're making that up." And I was like, "I swear I'm not. I just spent that many hours doing it." So we went down to the old game store and bought a Nintendo and played it. And I showed him. He's like, "Oh, okay." Yeah. So there's like this personality piece of like just really like loving what we're doing and grinding. I love sports, and so I just hit for hours, field for hours. I'm in the house, like I'm watching sports on the TV, or I'm tossing a ball off the wall. You can't replicate that. I look back
Yeah.
on it and it's like I had hours of practice that other people didn't get, and I was just messing around. I was just like, it's kind of Sandlot. That was just Sandlot kid, and so then you go to practice for 2-3 hours. You know what? You go to practice for 5 hours a week, but my practice without the intentionality of it, it started when I woke up and got out of bed in the morning, and it ended when I went to bed at night. I was practicing all the time, at football recess, basketball at recess. It just you can't replicate that because you're getting so much more practice than anybody else. And then the multi-sport piece, I think, was really important.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's a definite advantage to someone who's I don't want to say obsessive because it doesn't sound obsessive on your end, but kind of obsessive. You're always doing something, always working, and having fun at it, compared to somebody who is not happy with their result and out there hitting 1,000 balls in off a tee in a cage and obsessing over every failure or mishit. Right there has to be a difference.
I think so. I didn't. I didn't get in the cage and do that after I failed. I was doing it all along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference of all. I mean, and I can respect that. Like if you don't like your outcome, like you get off your butt and do something to change it. And we need more of that in this world instead of complaining and whining about what you don't have. Like let's go out there and change and get something. Let's go grab something. So I can
Yeah.
respect that. But yeah, you're right. It's different.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've seen kids that, and I've told the story a few times, but like and I look at it more like the kids that I have at my level, the high school kid, compared to when I knew them at high school and when they come back from college, they tend to be, and I guess maybe it's just because it's a little more focused and it's not as long, but it's more detailed and purpose and focus. So, yeah, I don't know. You and I are going to have some more talks about hitting, because what you just said about if there's a runner at third base and less than 2 outs, it's a done deal. They're scoring. I literally just had a kid in my backyard, and I do this to a lot of them. And I just had her hitting ground balls into a net, just like, hey, I want to see you hit this ground ball down into the net. They hit me 2 line drives into the net, and she had a hard time. And I said, I'm telling you right now, if there's a college coach and there's less than 2 outs, and you intentionally stay inside that ball, because as a righty, the ball's not going outside with less than 2 outs. Like it's going to be in on your hands or down up. Maybe you're going to get lucky with a changeup, but but like if you do that and it's the coach's note and it's intentional, that's a look. That's a definite. Hey, look at that kid's playing the game. So, you and I got to have more talks about hitting. I would love to know, when you talk about being a technically sound, sounds like, one of the three measures, you hit through a big zone. You stay on plane, like you said, for a long time, and you stay through the zone a long time. So I would love to talk more about that. Okay. What else? What else stands out to you about coaching in college? Are there anyone any rivalries or teams you look forward to playing to? I know you guys have a great stadium and an environment in the valley, and so like, is it what stands out to you for as far as coaching?
Well, it's really fun. It's very challenging. Um, yeah, I think winning is really hard. It's really hard, but it's really fun. And I think I don't know that I don't feel comfortable. I'll tell you that, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with feeling uncomfortable. It probably makes me a better coach, but there's not a day that I wake up and think, "Hey, well, we got this today."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Can I stop you really quick?
yeah.
Can I ask you? Do you don't feel comfortable how like with your job, or like that you're going to win, or that you're how like
Well, just everything feels like an uphill battle, and let me kind of explain what I mean by that. Is
okay.
I think when you rewind, say, 15 years, we got a 3-run lead in the seventh. We got this. Let's roll, right? We've got a good pitcher on the mound. Off we go. That is not the game today.
Yeah.
There is no lead that's secure anymore. The way that the quality of the offenses, the sophistication of the offenses is so high. It's so high. And so, I don't roll into the seventh inning with a 3-run lead, like feeling comfortable anymore.
Gotcha.
I also don't feel comfortable like in the off season of, I know we got some good players on this team. We came off 33-win season. We rebuilt this thing honestly from the bottom. And so I know that there's some good pieces there. I haven't lost sight of that, but at the same time, I'm like, are we good enough? Do we have all the pieces we need to win that championship? And so, no, I don't feel comfortable. I feel uncomfortable, and I mean that in the best of ways. But it is
Sure.
very challenging to win in this environment. A coach said something to me recently, and I'm not going to use any names or anything, but this person said, in the Mountain West, I keep waiting for, the coaches to do something stupid, and nobody ever does. So, it's like that's the level of coaching and competitiveness in this conference. It's really good. It's really tough. And so, your job is just never easy. It's always hard.
Yeah. I know a coach that's coaching in the Mountain West now. He's pretty new, and he told me, I asked him, on a phone call once. I said, "Hey, what's it like?" And this is when he was at BYU, and I said, "Hey, what's it like coaching, college versus travel ball?" And he said, "Randy, every single game is like PGF Nationals or the biggest national game." And he said exactly what you said. It's hard to win. It's so hard to win. And I'd love to know, and we don't have to talk about it now, but at some point, I'd love to have a conversation with you about when you say the sophistication of the offenses. I'd love to know what you mean by that. Like approach, pitch selection. My brain only goes so big. My level of expertise is only so big, and so like I would, because I heard a name thrown out there recently about a coach that's no longer in the Mountain West. He wasn't the head coach, but that I needed to pick his brain on his offensive system because it's just so good, and he won't share it with another coach that I know, and so I'd love to know what that means.
Um,
So
well, I'll give you a short answer, I guess.
okay,
I think the availability of film has been a big thing. The availability of film and data, game prep, game plan, approach. That's huge. And so you've got to understand that the days of okay, with the first trip through the lineup, we're figuring out the pitcher, they're gone. They already know the pitcher before the game even starts. They have a specific plan, a specific approach. If the pitcher is good enough, they're already eliminating pitches before the game even starts. They know what they want to hit, and they've been prepped to put the proper swing on that pitch. That's before the game even starts. Okay, and so now, does it still take some time to? Just knowing a plan and like standing in the box and actually seeing the pitch travel at you, sure, those are two different things. And so there still is advantage to first trip through the lineup for the pitcher. There's still advantage to that. Yes. The pitch selection may not be quite as precise the first time, but I can tell you by the second time, they're not swinging at any more trash. You know, everything they swing at is in the strike zone, hittable. They're really strong. The hitters have become very, very physical, and they know what they're doing. And it's happening so early in the game. It feels like it's happening in the third inning, you know?
Yeah.
And then the days of, well, like, you know, sure. I mean, everybody's top of the lineup produces more runs than the bottom of the lineup, but like nobody's got a bad bottom of the lineup anymore. It's not a thing. They're all producing runs. They're producing runs throughout the lineup. And you know as well as I do, that 8-hole gets on. It's going to be a big inning. Be a big inning.
Yep.
You know, the hurt is coming. And so, yeah, those are some pieces. The Mountain West is an interesting conference because you've got a bunch of elevation schools and then you got a bunch of sea level schools, and the scores are very different in those locations. And so, you know, what do? Do you build a roster to win at elevation? Do you build a roster to win at sea level? Do you need a combination of both? And how do you adapt and adjust? Because in this conference, like, and I don't see anybody in the foreseeable future. I don't see anybody coming in here with, you know, 2 losses winning the conference. That's not happening. I think you're a 5-6 loss conference that's the team that's gonna win the conference. That's what this conference is like. And it's just such a grind. And then we do that, and none of us have enough pitching. And so then we do that for 3 consecutive games. So that there's no new shine as of the third inning in the first game, and we have 21 innings total. So it's wild. It's absolutely wild, but a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Did you do any of that type of stuff when you were playing the game prep, and were you able to see that kind of film? Is that something you practiced early on?
No, we didn't. The availability of film just wasn't there 20 years ago. And then, you know, we certainly where I first started learning approach was as a professional, and it was in the dugout. It was talking to the other athletes of like, you know, hey, my next at bat, I'm going to go do this. You know, this is what she's going to throw me. This is what I'm looking for. And so that was really my intro to game prep. Because up to that point, it was like, okay, talent, let's go. Talent beat talent.
What kind of player might you have been then if you had that at your disposal?
I mean, I would have been better, but so would have everybody else.
That's true. Pitchers would have had video on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Wow. I mean, the game is really, really progressing, and I'm like I tell everybody, I'm just happy to be a part of it and trying to get to that next level for us. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting. How do you evaluate players? I know in the past talking to you, you're always looking for somebody that wants to play for you or your program. Like, you're not out there chasing kids and asking them to come play. But how do you evaluate that, and how do you weed through and find those kids?
Yeah. They do need to see Fresno State as a destination. Number one, I think it is a destination. It's maybe the best stadium on the West Coast. And so if you don't see that as a destination, we got a problem. This isn't going to work. You know, and the other thing is, yeah, they've got to be excited about playing for me. They've got to see some value in what we do as a staff and how we can, you know, help them to be great, but then also help cultivate a team atmosphere where, you know, in a world where it's all about me, like we're a little bit different. We're a little different. We're wired a little different. And so we do require a certain kind of human being and a certain kind of athlete. But yeah, I would say that's important. And how do you gather that? I mean, I think the first thing is certainly the way they play the game is very attractive to me. I mean, you have somebody go up there and slam a ball over a fence. And I recruited somebody in the last couple of years who she just flat out just hit the ball over the fence. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go recruit her. I didn't want to recruit her, but she was too good for me not to recruit because I hated the way she played defense. She didn't care. And it bugged the crap out of me. But I also need somebody to hit the ball over the fence. And all right, well, we're just going to have to coach her through that because she's going to have to learn those pieces. But that's not the norm. The norm is that kid that's going to run through a wall. If something's getting through the infield, they're on the ground, even if they know they can't get there. They might fire a ball, across the dime, and it might end up in the stands, but darn it, they threw it hard. They didn't short arm it. They didn't baby the throw. It's just certain they swing hard. Strike out, we're swinging. You do swing and miss, we're swinging hard. And so there's definitely some attributes that stand out on the field. And then you get on those phone calls, and it's kind of like, I guess, like recruiting when you get to that point where it's like, okay, I like the way you play the game and you like me enough that we set up a phone call. It's kind of like dating, right? And it's like, well, when I call you, do you like call me back right away? Do you text me back right away, or do you wait 3 days? Like that tells me something. That tells me what I need to know right there. And I do like, I'm really transparent, maybe probably at times too much. So I'm just very authentic and transparent. I don't know how to do fake. So I just really like tell our recruits like, hey, this is where you stand. This is what I see. This is what it is. And I ask them for the same. I'm like, hey, tell me, where are you visiting? Who are you serious about? Are you serious about that school? Yeah, I'm serious about that school. It's like, rank us right now. Rank us. What do you got? 1, 2, 3. Well, this is my 1. This is my 2. This is my 3. Okay, great. So, and I'll have sometimes they'll be like, well, I think you're probably like top 5. And I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm number 4, number 5? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't want you to take 5 visits. That's too many. I want you to pick 2 or 3. I want you to pick 2 or 3. And if I'm not one of them, then we can go our separate ways. And so then I think that when we read it, just try to get into it, because what I've found is more and more, there's only so much of me to go around. I find there's not enough me to go around either at work or at home with the kids. And there's only so many hours in the day. I just don't have time to waste. And so we need to get to it. We need to get whatever it is. I'm good with it. We just need to get to it. Okay, what is your level of interest? Are you all in? Do you see this as a destination? You can see it in their eyes. You can hear it in their voice. You can see it in their responsiveness. You see it in the way that they email. And if there's something that's like, I can tell that they're doing it with 20 schools, like it's not authentic to me. It's just not authentic to me. Like I'm looking for that, but I'm looking for that. There's something, like it's a little bit like dating. Like, oh, there's something I like about you. There's something special about you, right? So, this upcoming year, we are definitely honing in. I think we are going to make fewer September 1st phone calls than what we've ever made, really just trying to hone in on those ones that think we're special and we think they're special.
Gotcha. What about the NLI situation? Has that impacted you? Are you guys in that game? Is it, what do you think about that situation?
We're getting there. It's coming. I don't know that it's entirely directly upon us at the moment, but I know it's coming. What do I think of it? It's hard. I don't know that I love it on principle. I'm certainly not opposed to components of it because, like, let's be honest, in softball, there's nobody, well, in the Mountain West, there's nobody that's getting rich here, and so, like, if NLI or NIL is giving somebody, hey, it's an extra $200 a month for living expenses, I'm good with that. That's great. Yeah. That's great. That's a win-win, like you could go to a couple extra movies and go out to eat with your friends. That's great. Like I'm good with them, like on that large scale stuff. I think that's a totally different topic. But ultimately I think we're coming into some really interesting times because obviously we've got some, House v. NCAA legislation that's going to really turn things on its head a little bit, and will probably change the trajectory of how we do things in the structure. And at the end of the day, there's only so much money. There's just only so much money at any level. Yeah. There is a limited pot of funds, and schools I know will attempt to fundraise and increase that pot, but people only have so much money. Communities only have so much money. Like, how much can you really tap into that? We're all probably relatively close to our ceilings in terms of the dollars that we have at our disposal. We'll find a little more here and there in the right situation, but we can't make money grow on trees. And so, we're going to do the best. You tell me the rules and we're going to go to work. Just tell me what my rules are. Let's go play.
Right. Yeah, it's obviously become an interesting component, and like you said, there's some legislation coming, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I had somebody tell me that they think that they could see, whatever the number is of D1 colleges could possibly become one entity, and it'd be a limited number, right? I don't know, 75, maybe 50, whatever that number is, and that would basically become almost like a pro league. And then the remaining schools would be kind of like, I mean, it would all still be college, but it would be a different tier or a different level. All I know is, I guess anything that's an opportunity for these kids is great. I mean, I don't know if it's good or bad. I mean, I guess it's good at the moment. It's definitely interesting. I'm not smart enough to talk too much on that topic. I was just curious as to what you thought and what your feelings were, and how it might be affecting you. But in any case, I mean, eyes are always on parents. I mean, you're recruiting families and you're recruiting behaviors and you're looking for those red flags. So at any point in time, somebody could be identified good or bad, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're definitely watching parents. We're definitely watching parents. And people are, they say, hey, what kind of player, what kind of personality, what kind of player is going to fit in your system? Yeah, okay. Well, obviously, we have to have some talent. We got to have some grades. Okay, yeah. Once we
Sure.
get past that, okay, I just really want good people. I just really want good people. I want really, really good kids from really, really good families that are just flat out cold blooded killers on the field. That's what I want. I want to go to work with great human beings. I don't like turdy people. I don't like,
Right.
I know that people, they say, well, you got to have like a little bit of fire. I've got some really, really nice human beings on my team that are they're the hammer, so you don't have to be, not a great human to be a hammer. You can be a nice person and be a hammer, and you can be very, very nice and well behaved and respectful, and be incredibly competitive. We have a pitcher on our roster right now. I'm telling you, she's maybe the nicest person I've ever met. She is just so nice. I mean, do not let her niceness fool you. She wants to strike out every single batter with all of her heart. I mean, you would never know it. You would never know how competitive she is just by talking to her. She's just the nicest kid you've ever met. And I think those are the people that do really, really well, because we treat them with respect. We love them for who they are, right? We coach them hard, but again, with respect, because sometimes my job is to deliver hard information. Sometimes I have to
Mm-hmm.
tell you your curveball's not good enough and we got to either not call it or we got to work on that. That's hard information to hear. And so I want to do that, and I want to do that respectfully in the right way. Okay, but then we're going to go to work on it, right? And it's never
Yeah.
going to be like a you can't. It's a you can. We're going to get you there. Let's figure out how to go to work, right? And so then when we create that atmosphere for really, really good humans, they like being a part of it. They like being respected. And we do respect them. And I tell our parents and I tell our athletes, we do a little beginning of the year thing with anybody who's in town dropping kids off for school. And I tell them, listen, I cannot promise you you're going to like my lineup. I can't promise it. I won't promise that. I'm going to write the lineup that I think is going to win. That's the lineup I'm going to write. I can't promise you're going to like it, but I can promise you we will treat your daughter with respect. I can promise you that she's going to grow as an athlete and as a human being. I can promise you she's going to be held accountable in the classroom, right? I can promise you we're going to do the right things, right? And that's the foundation. That's the foundation, and they trust us in those ways. They know that, and they like, I'm not a lot of things. I may not be the most charismatic person in the room. I know that, but I am authentic. And I think I do come off as authentic. And when I stand in a room and I tell our parents that, they believe me and they know that I am absolutely doing my best in those things every single day.
That's great. I'm gonna have to steal that. That's a really good message, and it's all about trust. It's all about being on the same page, like you said, transparency, and you're right. Not everybody's going to like what lineup is written or who plays where, but at the end of the day, there's one person that gets the blame for it, and one person that gets all the credit, and or a lot of the credit, and that's the coach. So Yeah, I love that about you. And again, you've always been authentic with me. You've always been very nice, like I said before. And so I always appreciated that. Is there anything else you'd like to put out there to the audience before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I just appreciate you, Randy. I think like I just love that story. I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up of that day, and I want to say it was maybe down in Arizona. I can't remember, but just that day that we talked, and I was experiencing recruiting fatigue, and I was at a smaller school, and I just knew. I think at that time I felt it's like, hey, when I'm wearing my USA hat, everyone's like kind of kissing my feet a little bit, and that's not what I was going for, but that's what it was, right? And then I slap on my mid-major small school hat, and all of a sudden nobody wants to even talk to me, and I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways, people. And so I
Right.
just, I always really appreciated that. And I think there's always been, like, for me, there's always been a connection with you because of that. I will always respect what you do in your program. I love that you're doing a podcast. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And I think it's just cool. Like, you just reaching out to people and say, hey, will you talk to me? I think podcasts are like the coolest thing ever. Like, let's just have a conversation with interesting people about a topic that we all love. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for like just who you are and all your years of I mean, what I consider support. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully after this, I mean, I'm not going to promise you hundreds of thousands of people will see this, but a few more at least might know your story and know when they see you who you are and what you've done and what you've brought to the game. And so I really appreciate you as well.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I just want to say thanks for listening, and we will continue working to elevate the sport and get caught up with those who are influential in the fast pitch community. And hopefully we can help you navigate your softball journey. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Caught Up with Randy Kaye, or at Coach Kaye AZ. You can listen on Spotify, Caught Up with Randy Kaye. You can also follow us on X and on Instagram using the same handles at Coach Kaye AZ. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you soon.